Gracious Father, it's the end of the week, and here we are. The Sabbath day is here, and we are in this church because we came here to express our gratitude for what you have done for us, express our awe at who you are. We came here because we want to share with our friends and loved ones that we are your followers and that we want to spend eternity with you. But Father, this morning, this is not about us. This worship service is not about us. It's all about you. You are the center. You are the core of this worship service. And so I pray, Father, I invite you to be here. And I know that you are here with us. And I pray, Father, that at the end of it, we may truly feel that you've been present, and we may feel closer to you. I want to lift up those that can't be here today. You know their reasons. And particularly, Father, I want to pray for their challenges, for their struggles, whether they're physical, financial, relational, whether they might just be traveling. I pray, Father, that you may be with them, that they may feel your presence in their lives. Just guide us throughout this study. Open our hearts. Open our minds. I pray that you may remove all the distractions that clutter our brains, that clutter our minds, and just help us focus in what you have for us today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. A few minutes ago, I realized that this is going to be my 5th sermon here at the church. Straight, no pauses, just every 5th week preaching sermon. I wonder if this has anything to do with the Wiggles going on vacation. But I don't know. You guys tired, right? But anyways, it's again, it's good to be here, and we've been talking about God's purpose for humanity. We've been trying to understand what is God's plan for us, what is God's purpose for us. The first week, we touch on the idea that we have been created according to God's image. And then we talked about the fact that we were created to relate with one another. We were created to have relationships. We talked about last week that we were created to rest, not just physically, but also rest to the point of re-energizing physically and spiritually. And today, we are going to finish this series. And we're going to address, I hope that at the end you can agree that we were created to rule. God has created us to rule. So let's go back to the Bible. And for the last 4 sermons, we have read the same chapter or the same Bible verse over and over. So we're going to read it again. So let's go back to Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. I'm going to ask one of you to read verses 26. Genesis chapter 1, verses 26. Let me grab a microphone here. All right. Is there anyone that can read? Thank you, Bob.
I'll just take it for you.
Yeah. Is there a volunteer that raise your hand so Bob can take the microphone to you? All right. Thank you. Genesis chapter 1, verses 26.
And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth."
All right, thank you. Okay, we've talked a little bit about this, but I'm going to ask this question, and I've asked the question before, and I want to ask the question again. What does it mean to have been created according to God's image? What does it mean? We read the text. We were created according to let us make man in our image according to our likeness. What does that mean?
We had the
power to create, to give birth.
Okay.
And I always thought, as a young, I always thought it was like a physical 2 eyes, nose, body thing when I was young, little. But now I think it was more relationally, we were created for fellowship, for love, right? Love has existed in the three, in the giving, in the taking, in the family, in the fellowship.
Okay, very good. Thank you. What else? What does it mean to have been created according to God's image, or in God's image according to his likeness? Any other thoughts? So quiet. What?
No, I agree with Ruth.
All right. Thank you for that thought. That's good. Thank you, Gabrielle. So God created us according to his image. And when he created us according to his image, he's referring specifically inside and outside. Okay? So what you believed in the past when you were growing up, you can still believe in that. Because we were created according to his image, which implies physically, emotionally, inside and out. Right? But then we were also created according to his likeness. And now he refers to a function perspective. We were created to reflect God's likeness. So whatever function God had among the universe, we were created to reflect that. Does it make sense? So, created according to his physical image, emotional and the physical part of it, but also created to represent him as far as his function, as far as who he is, as far as his presence. And so it says in the text that let them do what? So verse 26, let them have what? Dominion. What do we have here? Let have dominion. So now we have God saying, this is me. I'm creating you according to who I am, to my image, but I'm also giving you the authority to be like me, to represent me, to be my quote-unquote ambassador. And so we have God ruling over the entire universe, and now at a smaller scale, God is saying, you're going to rule over this. Do you see what God is doing? God is transferring to us the authority to have dominion over this earth. He transferred that to Adam and Eve. So now let me ask you another question. Before I ask you what does it mean, which implies more of a theological, technical explanation now, how do you feel knowing, or how does that impact you, knowing that we are created according to God's image and according to God's likeness, according to who he is and what he does? How does that impact us? How does that impact you? How do you feel about that? Come on, guys. I always ask these questions, and you're always a lot more talkative. What's going on today? How do you feel about that? Feels a lot of responsibility. Yes. Do you want to develop on that, Jack? No? Okay. All right. Feels a lot more responsibility. Okay. You have, most of you, all of you pretty much, have been parents, have raised a little kid or a child, and at some point you have this need to somehow find a babysitter, right? So you need to get somebody to come and find that babysitter. At that particular point, you give instructions to the babysitter. I want the kids in bed by a certain amount of time, or by 9 o'clock. Do not feed them this, and this. Don't let them watch this, don't let them watch that. And you expect that babysitter to follow it, correct? You gave the instructions. You expect that to happen. That babysitter at that moment became what? Became the function that you had as the parents. That babysitter became the parent according to your own ideals, your own perspective of education. Does that make sense? So he became, quote unquote, your representative. David, you want to say something? Bob, can you take?
I think the problem because we are so quiet, we never know what you are looking for. We don't know which answer you're looking for. Sometimes our answer don't match with your thoughts. But I'll try to explain my idea. Because I was thinking, I waked on the night and I was thinking about that. Our planet's so small. It's a little piece of earth, it's a dust, it's a grain in the universe. When God created us, if this planet is really small, we are like a worm here. We are nothing. From the space, if you look at this direction, you don't see our planet. You don't see us. He did us so small. Wow, I'm nothing, I was thinking on the night. But after that, I think, but God knows He was supposed to be here and be one of us. He did us so small, knowing this. But this is not important for us because we always count numbers, how great is something, how rich is that guy or that one, another one. But He says, you are like a grain. If you have faith like a grain, a little seed, you can move everything. What is important to be like Him? Because He knows when He created me, He will be like me. This is amazing. I was thinking, wow, Jesus is like me. He's small like a seed and live with me. This, I don't have words to explain, but for me it's really amazing. Because we are nothing, but God come and become nothing with me to transform my life. Is the most important life in the universe because everyone is saying to you, is looking at you or looking in your direction. I'm not sure this is...
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. I'm just asking for your feelings on the matter, that's on the right or wrong. How does that make you feel to know that we have been created on God's image to represent Him to this world, right? Heather?
I believe we're also created in His image and after His likeness. I believe that we are created in His image and after His likeness to be His friends. God needs friends. And apparently the other beings that He created that aren't in His image can't quite have the same relationship with Him as humans who were created in His image and likeness can have.
Yeah, brings back the idea of created to relate, right? Not just to relate with each other, but to also relate to Him. Any other thoughts how you feel about knowing, reading and finding out that we have been created according to God's image, according to His likeness? Any other idea? There, Bob.
I think what a high honor it is that we are in God's image, and the brother talked about the responsibility that places on us. That means we need to ensure that we are representing Him properly because we're created in His image. We need to take care of our bodies. We need to take care of the way we look and think because we are representing Him to everyone else around us.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Very good. Ellen White, she wrote, man was to bear God's image, both in outward resemblance and in character. And then addressing Adam, she said, Adam was crowned king in Eden. To him was given dominion over every living thing that God had created. The Lord blessed Adam and Eve with intelligence such as He had not given to any other creature. He made Adam the rightful sovereign of all the works in his hands. Man, made in the divine image, could contemplate and appreciate the glorious works of God in nature. And, I cannot even imagine how Adam felt. God created earth for 6 days. This. Sabbath day he rested. He looks back and he says, wow, this is all perfect. Now, Adam, here. you manage it. I've given you a perfect earth. Now you take it. You know, I imagine sometimes, and maybe Bob can relate more to that, or those that work with their hands creating something, where it takes you time to create. You know, just like the story about Peter and the paintings. You know, imagine spending countless hours creating a masterpiece and just say, "Now, take care of it." How would we feel? I would feel honored, right? I mean, the sense of responsibility. Now I need to take care of this, right? And so God gave man dominion over the earth. So what does it mean, dominion? The Hebrew word about dominion it presents the idea of royalty. It's not just any kind of dominion. It's like royalty, royal dominion, royal, like a king can rule something. And so God gives us dominion because he placed us as the kings of this earth. Now then the question is, how do we express that dominion? You know, how are we to rule over the earth? So I'm going to invite you to open your Bibles in the book of Psalms chapter 72. Psalms chapter 72. Now, Psalm 72 is one of the few psalms that Solomon wrote. And he has to do a little bit with his years as king. Psalm 72, can someone read verses 8? If you can read, just raise your hand so Bob can take the microphone. Verses 8. All right, thank you, Rick.
May he rule from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth.
Okay. The word rule, or dominion, as translated in other words, is the same word used in Genesis. Now, verses 12. Can you continue to read? Sorry, Rick. Verses 12. 12 to 14. How is he supposed to rule? Verses 12.
Okay. For he will deliver the needy who cry out, the afflicted who have no one to help. He will take pity on the weak and the needy and save the needy from death. He will rescue them from oppression and violence, for precious is their blood in his sight.
So what is he saying? This is the king that is supposed to rule, same concept as in Genesis, and this is what the text is saying. This is how he's supposed to rule, right? Bob, can you take the microphone to Susan, please? Susan.
A lot of times when we think of leadership or we think of business management or ruling, we think of it as a top-down kind of hierarchical kind of a management system where we tell people what to do and they have to do it. But in God's case, the biblical model was that Jesus came and washed the feet of the people, and he told us that we need to take care of all of these things, that we need to be, on the bottom, sort of lifting up and supporting everything else. We need to be taking care of our environment, taking care of people, taking care of, ourselves as well. But we have this, it's a bottom-up kind of management. So instead of a top-down.
Yeah, and that's what we call servant leadership. Yeah, that's exactly that. But here we have Solomon writing a psalm. So his vertical connection with God is established there at this time. And now he says, as a king, I am expected to deliver the needy when they cry. I'm expected to address with the poor, to deal with the poor, to help them, to take care of them, to redeem the souls that have been oppressed. What is Solomon doing? What is he saying? He got the vertical relationship worked out. Now he is sharing the horizontal, right? So what do we see here? Love your God, love your neighbor. That's what dominion implies. That's what dominion means when God placed Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and said, rule over the land. Not as a rule as an oppressor, but rule as a representative of my own character. Or you love your God and you love each other. Right? Are you getting that? Now, Lord, turn with me to Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 34. Ezekiel chapter 34, verses 4. Who can read that text? Ezekiel chapter 34, verses 4. Now, this is the opposite of what a king should do. Verses 4.
You have not strengthened the weak or healed the sick or bound up the injured. You have not brought back the strays or searched for the lost. You have ruled them harshly and brutally.
Do you see the difference? In one, Solomon is saying, this is what you are to implement your dominion, to reflect my character. This is what you need to do. Or to reflect God's character, this is what you need to do. Take care of the needy ones. Take care of the oppressed ones. Take care of the widows. Take care of those that there are in need. Take care of those that are suffering. And opposite to that, it says, but you have not done any of this. And on top of that, you have forced and you have ruled over them with cruelty. That's not dominion. That's not God's plan for ruling. Now, the text, let's go back to Genesis. Let's go back to Genesis. We got to speed up a little bit here. So God created man and woman at his own image and as according to his own likeness. And then verses 28. I'm going to read verse 28 for sake of time. Then God blessed them, chapter 1, verse 28. Then God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and do what? And subdue it. Now, this is a contradiction here. Because the concept of subduing something, the idea, the word in itself implies something different. This word implies enslavement. On its extreme implies molesting or raping. God is saying, subdue the earth. Which to a certain extent, if we were just going to look at this superficially, he contradicts the idea of dominion. And the text right away, right next to it says, and have dominion. So we need to understand this in two ways. Okay, so when this word talks about, for example, molestation or raping somebody, this is extreme. It's a term that is used in its extreme, and it's only used when supposedly the victim is actually the hostile one. For example, an army fights to subdue the enemy because this army has been attacked by the other army. So if this army here does not subdue the enemy, this army is going to be killed, destroyed, right? So there's this idea, okay, we're going to be mean, we're going to be, quote unquote, bad to each other, but it's because somebody else started these bad actions. But now look at this. Think about it from this way. When God created the Garden of Eden, he placed Adam and Eve there with dominion to take care of it, to take care of the earth, take care of the land, to work the land in itself. So to a certain extent, Adam and Eve were masters of the land, pre-fall. After fall, you notice how things have changed, where now man is not in control of pretty much of anything. I mean, we live in probably the North America, the most technological advanced place in the world, and how much can we do actually, or how much control do we have over nature? We can bring all the technology that we want, and yet, if there's a hurricane, we can't do anything about that. If there's an earthquake, we can't do anything about that. But man was supposed to have dominion over all these things. So what happened? What happened? Well, Ellen White, she says, and we're kind of moving along a little bit faster here. Ellen White, she wrote, Satan made his exalting boast to Christ and to loyal angels that he had succeeded in gaining a portion of the angels in heaven to unite with him in his darling rebellion. And now that he had succeeded in overcoming Adam and Eve, he claimed that their Eden home was his. So what happens? Adam and Eve sinned, and now the dominion was no longer theirs. Satan now is claiming to himself. Think about when Nebuchadnezzar came. There was the country of Israel. There was Jerusalem. Not his. There was Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar came, defeated the king of Israel, destroyed Jerusalem. Jerusalem became his. Right? So Satan is implying the same concept. I defeated the earthly king, the one that had dominion. I defeated Adam and Eve. Therefore, now I rule. And so you see when Jesus, he's taken to the desert and then he's taken by Satan to be tempted, what does he say? I have all of this that I can give you. I have dominion over all of this if you just bow down to me. Right? So that's what Satan is implying here. He claimed that their Eden home was his. He proudly boasted that the world which God had made was his dominion. That having conquered Adam, the monarch of the world, he had gained the race as his subjects and should now possess Edom, making that his headquarters, and would there establish his throne to be monarch of the world. Satan's plan. And so, after the fall, we have lost control over everything. We no longer have dominion. We no longer subdue the earth. Now we struggle to survive. We fight to survive. I mean, again, look when we had those hurricanes down in Florida, New Orleans. No matter how much technology, they could not stop that. Right? So look at the difference. Man was to have dominion over the earth. The disciples were amazed because when they were in the middle of the storm in the Sea of Galilee, Jesus spoke and the storm ceased. Man was supposed to be able to do that. But he relinquished his authority when he transferred that to Satan. So we have no dominion now over any animals. I mean, you stand yourselves in front of a lion in the African jungle, and I tell you what you're going to do. You know, we have no control over that. Even small things, even a bee. When you see a bee, it's a little thing, what do? You know, and you just kind of go crazy because there's a bee. We have no dominion over that. Mosquitoes. Do we have any control over that? No, we don't. We have no dominion over the earth. Tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, hail, wildfires, volcanoes. We lost the dominion. That responsibility that was given to us, we let it go. We did not fulfill our responsibility. We did not fulfill our rights. So does that mean that God's plan has changed? No. It means that somewhere down the road we screwed up and we missed the point, but God's plan was still the same. So now check this out. This is the exciting part. Okay? Do you remember how we started the service? Rick went up there and he read a text. You remember what that text was? Revelation chapter what? Chapter 4. He read the entire text of Revelation chapter 4. Beautiful text. You remember what he talks about? John looking, and there's a throne. There's the room with the throne of God, and there's all these people there. All right? But then he skipped a few verses, and he continued reading on Revelation chapter 5, verses 11, to the end of the chapter. Right? Mr. B, you're the one that came up with the verses, right? You asked him to read that, right? In my sermon, I had planned that we were going to study the verses that you did not include in the presentation. So you put verses chapter 4, verses 5, 11 to the end, and I had prepared that we're going to read a little bit, chapter 5, verses 1 to 10. So let's do that. So He was reading that, I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. God, you're working in a way here that's quite interesting. So let's go to the book of Revelation. Revelation chapter 5. Now again, chapter 4, it's John seeing the throne, the room where the throne is, and he's describing it, what's happening there. The central focus in chapter 4 is this throne and the one that is in the throne. Now chapter 5 starts, and I saw in the right hand of him, the one that sat on the throne, a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. So John is describing this. He sees a man sitting on the throne, which we know, he's talking about God, with a scroll. And the scroll is sealed with 7 seals. What is the word 7 and what does it mean? Perfection, right? So the scroll, he's sealed with 7 seals, implying perfection here. Then he says, then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice. This is what the angel proclaimed. Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals? That's the question. Is there anyone here, the angel speaking, is there anyone here that is worthy to open the scrolls? That is open to step forward and break the seals? Now, it's not because it was hard to break them. It's not because it was difficult to open the seals. The question is there anyone worthy of doing that? Right? Verses 3. And no one in heaven or on the earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll, to look at it. Wow. John is in the room, he's looking at this scene and try to picture this beautiful masterpiece which would be God's throne, God's room. Try to picture it. Surrounded by people, there's the 24 elders there. There's all this multitude of people. And John is there, he's looking at that. Then the angel is asking, who can open this scroll? Who is worthy to open the scroll? You know, it's just like one of those questions. Who can do this? And the room goes entirely silent. No one says anything. It's total silence. So John, verses 4. So I wept much, because no one was found worthy to open and read to the scroll or to look at it. John is in distress. He's looking at the picture and is like, wow, there's no one here worthy to open this scroll. There's no one. There's nobody that can do that. Not the angels, not the people from other worlds. No one can open the scroll. And so he's in distress. So I wept, he says. And he has the word, I wept much. That's what he says. So I wept much. Verses 5. But one of the elders said to me, do not weep. Now there's a conversation happening. One of the elders approached John and says, please do not cry. Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals. And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne and of the 24 living creatures, in the midst of the elders stood a lamb as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which were the 7 spirits God sent out in all the earth. Now, John is looking, let's go back a little bit. John is looking, and there's no one in that room that takes that first step. I can open the scroll. No one is worthy to do that. And he's crying. He's desperate. How can this be? So an elder comes to him and says, hey, don't cry, because there's one, the Lion, and the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Why the word lion there? Why referring to him as the lion? Because lions defeat other animals. They conquered something. They're strong, they're powerful, implying here that Jesus had defeated Satan. The Lion of the tribe of Judah. He can prevail. He can open the scrolls. And so John says, and I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne, which implies that, and the word implies that Jesus wasn't there at this time, but suddenly appeared in the middle of all of them, the midst of the throne, and of everybody else, a lamb, as though he had been slain. Do you notice that? The lion can open the scrolls, and in the midst of the throne, in the midst of everybody, there's one, just like a lamb. Wow. Why? Why the lamb? Servant leadership, Susan mentioned. The character of God being reflected, not by might, not by word, not by sword, not by any of it, but by humility, but by surrendering myself. Jesus defeated Satan because he truly was able to reflect God's character, a loving character. So you have the lamb with the marks of being slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes. And then he came and took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. Are you following this picture? It looks like a big sci-fi movie, right? You know, are you trying to see this? So Jesus in the midst of them appeared, and now he walks to the throne, and he grabs the scroll, and he opens the scroll. Now, when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each having a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song. It had to be a new. Why is this a new song? Because this song is the song reflecting what had happened, what Jesus had done. This is the song of the redeemed. You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals. You are the only one that can do this, because for you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood. That's why you are worthy to open the scrolls. Out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and have made us what? And have made us what? Kings and priests to our God. And we shall do what? Reign. Do you see what's happening here? Original plan. Original plan. I'm going to make man according to my image. They can represent me. They can have my function. They can have my position. They can represent to the world. We transfer that. Adam and Eve transfer that to Satan. But God's original plan did not stop there. He had to go back to its original plan. And you have made us king and priests to our God. And we shall reign on the earth. And we shall reign on the earth. Beloved, we were created to rule. We were created to represent God. We were created to have His function, to have His position. Obviously not at a universal level. That is God. He gave us that down here. We were created to take care of this earth. Adam and Eve messed up, and we still pay the price for that. Every day we pay the price for that. But that's not the end. The cycle is not completed. God's going to bring it around, and He's going to reestablish what He originally intended, what He originally had created. I know that many times we struggle. I know that many times we look at our lives, we look at our problems, we look at our challenges, and we think, well, is there more to it? Is there more to this? And if there's something that this text can teach us, is that God's original plan is not done with it, has not been pushed aside. God still has the intent of reestablishing us to that original plan. And He will do that. That's why Revelation then ends, no more tears, no more cries, no more pain, no more sorrow, no more everything, because God is reestablishing the original plan, and He's placing us as center part of that original plan. We were created in God's image. We were created to relate. We were created to rest. But in His amazing love, God also created us to take care, to have dominion over this planet. And even though temporarily we seem to have lost it, one day we will regain that dominion back. So hang in there. One day that will come.